This is the one I'm really looking forward to, because we're going to hear from people who have specifically made the move to Guernsey. So people like yourself who might be thinking about making this move to the island, they've already done it. So please welcome up to the stage our relocators, Nicole Birrell, John Brewer and Susanna McInnes. Thanks very much, guys. Come on up. Yeah, so just to clarify, three guests with us now who used to live outside of Guernsey, so that might be in the UK or elsewhere, and are now in Guernsey and are fully settled in. John, you're sitting next to me, so let's start with you, because you made quite a big geographical move, didn't you, I believe, from Hong Kong to Guernsey?
Yes. 40 years in Hong Kong before we moved to Guernsey.
And how was that transition for you?
Remarkably straightforward.
What made it straightforward? What made it helpful? What did you like about settling in? Because I imagine there was a big cultural shift from maybe moving from somewhere like Hong Kong to Guernsey. What helped you settle in, do you think?
Well, my situation is probably a little bit unusual because although I may not look it, I've actually got kids of 6 and 4 years old. And the parents among the schools where our children are attending have been incredibly accommodating. That was the major factor. Second factor was I was able to slip back into a particular interest that I had let go dormant for the last 40 years, and that was playing the tuba. The Guernsey music scene is remarkable. There's so many groups of musicians, such high standard and such frequency of performances. I'm thoroughly enjoying playing the tuba back in the brass band every week, and playing in the symphony orchestra when that has performances. So for me in particular, it's been a very, very easy move to make.
We've heard about the community, we've heard about the beaches, we have now heard about the music scene in Guernsey as well. Thank you very much for that, John. Susanna, if we come to you, just tell us a bit about your circumstances and I suppose what brought you to make the move to Guernsey.
So my husband and I have 4 children. We'd lived in London for 23 years. And we'd come to a point where 2 of our children had gone off to university and our youngest was at boarding school. And our 3rd child has got a rare chromosomal imbalance, quite similar to Down syndrome. And so my husband and I were faced with this reality where we knew it was coming. 3 of our children would go and we'd be left at home with Mungo, who's gorgeous. But he was at a school in Brixton, which wasn't ideal for him. And my husband decided, well, he put forward the idea to me, the kids are all going, why don't we go? Why don't we look at a Channel Island? And we looked at Jersey and we looked at Guernsey and we found that provision for special needs education was better in Guernsey. And we haven't looked back. He has absolutely loved it, made wonderful friends. And one of the big pluses for us is swimming. Nicole will tell you more about that later. But cold water swimming has been amazing. When we went to Guernsey, Mungo hadn't learned how to swim yet. He was 15 at the time when we came.
And he had spent, I understand, quite a number of years trying to get to grips with swimming in the UK.
That's right.
What then happened when you moved to Guernsey?
So having done stage 1 for years in London, it took 3 months and then he was swimming, which is wonderful to see your child being able to just exercise in that way and independently. You know, obviously it's really safe if you can swim when you get in the water.
Yeah, interested to know how you felt, I suppose, emotionally when you saw the years of challenge of trying to get to grips with swimming in the UK, and then it was cracked within a short period of time in Guernsey. What was your reaction when you saw that unfold?
Well, with that, you can see the confidence just rising in a child to feel that they could actually achieve that. And that meant too that he could achieve other things, like going down to the shops and buying his own fruit juice and things, which we wouldn't have considered letting him do in London. So it's been really special.
Nicole, we'll come to you, and I think when people hear you speak, they'll know that yes, you've made the move from London, but you're not originally from London, is that right? So tell us a little bit about your circumstances and that move to Guernsey ultimately.
Absolutely. So originally from Johannesburg in South Africa, we moved over to the UK about 17, 18 years ago. Both my children grew up here in the UK. And Andrew and I just got to the point where we were looking for something different. And when we started looking at different, opportunities, Guernsey came into the picture. And I think everything that everybody has said here today has given you really what was so appealing for us. It's simple. Everything about moving to Guernsey is really, really simple. So from that perspective, it was very easy. I think the real surprise for me was I came from a very established community in Surrey with a lot of friends, all friends that I'd made through the school system with my girls. And now we were moving to somewhere that I knew absolutely nobody. And that was quite daunting. How was I going to create a new community? How was I going to find my tribe? My children weren't going to be there on a daily basis. I wasn't going to a job. I'm not a tennis player. I couldn't join a tennis club. So it was really quite something to put myself out there as a 50-year-old lady, and all of a sudden I've got to start again, and I've got to reintroduce myself because I'm not someone that operates very well on my own. And Guernsey's been fantastic. So I found a community through all sorts of other ways. So yes, the cold water swimming, the walking my dogs, the paddle, the saunaing. I mean, they all sound like lovely activities, and I can, happily say that I do them regularly, and I feel really, really grateful that we've landed in Guernsey.
I'm sure we'll talk a bit more about sea swimming in due course, because people who do it in the Channel Islands just absolutely love it. And you hear about people going out on lunch breaks, swimming in the sea at lunchtime, and what it brings to them. I just wonder, John, how have you sort of settled in, and how have you found the sort of the family atmosphere in Guernsey, perhaps from other places you might have lived in?
Well, remarkably quickly in terms of settling in. I didn't think that after 40 years in Hong Kong, I would be able to let go of Hong Kong quite so quickly. It's astonished me, actually. Very surprising. I still got some very good friends there, but I do not miss it. I thought I would. In terms of the, I didn't, remind me the second part of your question.
Well, you were saying about, I suppose, aspects that you maybe don't miss. I think that's a really interesting thing to touch on, how you can live somewhere for a long, long period of time.
It's comparing it with other places.
Flick a switch and go to Guernsey, and actually you immerse yourself in Guernsey life quite quickly, and on Hong Kong's in the distance a little bit. Yeah,
but the other half of your question, I think you're alluding to, was Mark knows that prior to going to Hong Kong many years ago, I had lived in Australia for 2 years.
Yeah.
And my goodness, was it hard to find my way into a tribe in Australia. I was in South Australia, wonderful place, but Adelaide itself is like a big country town. And it's very, very hard. It took me 6-8 months to be able to get a network of friends going. Guernsey is completely the opposite. Within weeks, we're meeting people, and people are holding themselves out. It's an incredibly neighborly place because we only live 15 minutes in the town centre, but if I walk into the town centre, I need to put on my watch an extra 10 minutes to get in, because on the way in, I'm bound to meet somebody I know. And if you simply say good morning or good afternoon and nothing else, you're regarded as rude. So you have to have a bit of a chit-chat about something. It's an incredibly neighbourly place.
It's so true. If you're going to do your food shop in the island, give yourself an extra half an hour to get around the bread aisle, the milk aisle.
Yeah.
To get your milk and butter. And I just wondered that bit you were talking about Australia, that was interesting because you said that it took you 6-8 months maybe to settle in there. It was a lot quicker in Guernsey. Can you put your finger on maybe what it was? It was just being in a much bigger place than where you were in Australia. What was the difference in Guernsey?
Australia, I didn't have children, didn't have school network, didn't have parents to mingle with and share war stories with. And I was a lot younger. So I was looking for a very different lifestyle. Half the problem was the business I was working in was the defense sector, and the location of the defense business was way out north of the city, whereas all the action was in the city and around the immediate city environs. So geographically, I was in the wrong location anyway.
Okay. We've talked music, we've talked sea swimming, we've talked about beaches. We should also talk to Susanna about art. Check out some of her art. It's really, really impressive because that's something that you've brought one of your passions to Guernsey. Tell us a bit about how maybe that's developed in Guernsey, things you've really enjoyed about the landscape in terms of your artwork.
Absolutely. So I paint whatever inspires me, and I do find Guernsey incredibly inspiring. There's so much to paint there. In London, I was running, and I am the president of Chelsea Art Society. It's, I look after 105 artist members, and we put on an annual exhibition in the King's Road. And I find that it's easy to run that from Guernsey. It's so easy. It's sort of 3 hours door to door from Guernsey to Clapham, where I can stay when I'm in London. And what I found also with Guernsey is there's obviously a very thriving art community there already. And I've met lots of those artists who've been really welcoming. There hasn't been at all me stepping on anybody's toes. They've been like, brilliant to have you, let's all get together. There's artists who I've painted with already just outside. We set up our easels on the edge of the cliff, well, not quite the edge, but you know, and take in the sights.
Yeah.
I've joined
safely away from
the edge. I've joined a life drawing class that happens on a Wednesday evening, every Wednesday of the year apart from Christmas. It's in an upper room above. It's in a pub in St. Peter Port. And that has been a lovely community of every age of artist, all joining once a week. So I find I feel very at home there.
And just on the artwork side of things, and you mentioned sort of setting up in different spots to go and to do your painting, your drawing. I mean, there's specific parts of the island you might be able to paint a picture, pardon the puns, people here, of things you've seen, spots in the island, you think, wow, this is absolutely amazing. Maybe anything that you can reflect on?
I think the architecture of all the houses is so beautiful. There's a real range. There's the modern houses, but there's also these beautiful Guernsey granite, pink or grey granite houses. And that granite runs right through the island, whether it's on the beach or if it's in the building materials itself. It hasn't been. I'd say that it's really beautiful. Nothing's really been ruined. You know, you've still got these lovely old Edwardian villas as well as the lovely townhouses. There's the parks and there's Delancey, the Salmoreau Park. There's a lot to discover. And more recently, I've been inspired by the hedge veg stalls. And I was just driving along to go and meet up with somebody, and I thought, oh, those look like beautiful strings of purple onions. So I stopped and I bought the purple onions and I set them up at home in a north-facing window, and I painted the onions. Another time I went to surf and turf, and there was a chancery crab. It was pre-cooked, beautiful orange-looking crab. So I bought it, and my husband went, "Oh, yummy! Let's have that for lunch." I went, "No, I'm going to paint it."
That's your work.
That's
exactly.
my work,
right?
Exactly. So yeah,
a great picture on what people can find around them. Nicole, I want to talk to you about swimming, because there'll be people here thinking, well, actually, what a great way to kind of round off the working day to go swimming in the sea. I have to give an admission here. Having lived in the Channel Islands for 7 years, I didn't go swimming in the sea once. I'm a bit embarrassed about it, but, caveat, I went back recently and went in 2 days running. And I can say it was absolutely amazing, and it gave me a new lease of energy for the rest of the day. But for you, Nicole, what is it about that aspect of maybe that community and the sea swimming side of things?
Well, first of all, just to put a caveat on, when we say swimming, please don't get a vision of goggles and a cap and lengths up and down a bay. That's not me. I'm dipping in and out with a group of friends, staying in as long as we can possibly be in so that we get the health benefits. There's lots of chatting. And I think that, as you alluded to, it's as much about the social element as it is about the swimming and all the health benefits that we're all hearing about. So it's a huge part of the community there. I mean, the first swim that I went to, I joined a Facebook group. And my husband said to me, "What do you mean you're joining a swimming group on Facebook?" I said, "Well, I'm joining a swimming group on Facebook, and we're going to Cobo to swim on Saturday." And he said, "Well, do you even know where Cobo is?" I said, "No, it's fine." And I then was told that you have to buy something called a dry robe. So I put on the little group, "Does anybody know where I can buy a dry robe?" And I had sort of 4 responses very quickly. So I went off and bought my dry robe and set off on Saturday morning. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to walk onto the beach. And if I don't feel comfortable, I'm just going to keep walking because nobody knows me. So it doesn't really matter. And there they were set up. There were probably 50 people on that swim. And I sort of walked up and put my big girl pants on and my big brave voice, and I said, "Hi, I'm Nicole." And someone said to me, "Are you the dry robe lady?" I said, "Yes." and that was it. And I mean, I think that particular group is over 1,000 people.
Yeah.
So it's a huge sense of community. It's intergenerational. It's people that have lived and been in Guernsey their whole life. It's the likes of me who just arrived.
Yeah.
And it's just a complete leveler. So everybody is going into the water for the same reason. It's been amazing.
And a great community around you and people who can
Great
help you on those social groups, which is
Great community.
really reassuring for people to know. John, I have got on my list here, as far as this conversation is concerned, it's an honest conversation about moving to Guernsey. So we should just give, I suppose, a flavour for people, maybe what are some of the challenges? Is it a case of if you are in a small island, maybe you're trying to get off island, sometimes can that be a challenge? If you're trying to buy a pint of milk late at night, there's not a 24-hour Tesco down the road or something. I mean, I don't know if there's anything you can sort of touch on that front, just to sort of manage people's expectations of what that move to Guernsey is like.
Well, I think the answer I give you, Mark, needs to be prefaced by the fact that in Hong Kong, pretty much all of the retail convenience stores, they're called 7-Eleven, but they're actually 24/7. They're open all night long. So I don't know what it's like in London, whether you can find that kind of convenience or even out in the Shires, but certainly in Hong Kong, pretty much everything is available all day. Even Christmas Day, shops are open. Every single day of the year, shops are open. Guernsey is very different. It's what probably the UK had 50, 60 years ago. You can get milk late at night. You can go to a petrol station Most of the petrol stations got small convenient shops. They'll be open until 10. But beyond that, no, you're stuck.
Yeah. Wait till the morning.
Wait till the morning. I mentioned before that we live only 15 minutes walk from the town centre. One of the things I was surprised at was how little street lighting there is around St. Peter Port. And as outside St. Peter Port, there is no street lighting. So if you go out late at night, if you're coming back late at night, for example, from a concert, you need to have a small flashlight with you because the pavements can be a bit narrow.
Yep.
And you want to make sure that drivers don't mistake you or run you down or something like that. So that wasn't an unpleasant surprise, but it was a bit of a surprise. Other things which are different. Let me have a think. I mentioned the narrow pavements. They can be a bit of a challenge when you're walking kids to school.
Because you do see cars generally sort of, gut these pavements a little bit.
There is a bit of
pavement.
Pavement surfing is illegal, but it's tolerated. But the driving, on the other hand, is famously courteous. Yeah. Famously courteous. You can be waiting to cross a road, nowhere near any traffic bollards or traffic crossing or anything like that. And you find drivers on both sides will slow down, stop, and wave you across. When it comes to junctions, drivers are incredibly courteous.
It's amazing. I completely agree. And having driven in the islands and in the UK as well, you do just get people letting you out. And actually, you then drive in, Oxford or something, and you're like, why is that person not let me out at that junction? It's because you're not in the islands. It is different, and it's a nice thing to be aware of. Yeah. I just want to touch on education with you, Susanna. We've got our education panel joining us shortly. But how has that been for you? Because you mentioned your son with specific needs that you needed to sort of cater for in Guernsey. How did you find that? How did you find the sort of support network around you?
When we arrived and were searching around and looking for the right kind of education for Mungo, it seemed to be a really easy process. We moved from our EHCP standing that we have with our son in the UK over to Guernsey, and they were really helpful and just put a package in place for him very easily. We communicated well about him, and they were able to cater for him. No complaints. It was quite a seamless transition, and he has made lots of nice friends that have gone with him onto the college. And we bought a house 3 minutes walk from college, so he's able to walk himself to and from the college. So for us, it's been really brilliant.
So how you've been able to settle in Guernsey overall, is that sort of met as it exceeded your expectations?
Absolutely. Yes, it has exceeded our expectations. It's all that I'd ever hoped for, really. I'd always wanted to live by the sea. We've been in London for, as I was saying, for 23 years, and we're both sailors. I've got my day skipper's qualification. In time, I'd love to get myself a boat and paint and sail. My husband's really enjoyed learning how to fly. He's now got his private pilot's license, and so there's a lot for us to explore and enjoy there.
Lots to explore and enjoy, and indeed for you, Nicole, with I believe your two children in the UK, sort of studying at school and at university. Yeah. How do you find that, managing that, and do they enjoy coming back to visit you in Guernsey?
They do. It's really easy. I mean, you've got, you're talking about having an honest conversation. It's an island. Weather happens on an island. The fog comes in. There's an issue with the aeroplane. There's an issue with the ferry. But on the whole, we've been incredibly lucky, and we do come back and forth a lot. Yep. Either my husband or I are back here most weekends because we've got a child who's still at boarding school here. And we really are able to make it work quite easily. So we haven't found the connectivity to be an issue at all. And we do come back and forth quite a lot.
Yeah, and you've managed that sort of off-island, coming back to Ireland aspect, that's gone as smoothly as you would have hoped.
Absolutely. No, it's been amazing. And in fact, our elder daughter, who's in Edinburgh at university, she describes it like coming home to a retreat. I mean, it really is like that. Everything's a little bit slower. Yeah. It's just, it does feel like I have to pinch myself and say, I actually live here. I'm not on holiday. Yeah. That's how it feels. Mm-hmm.
What about you, John, in terms of, I suppose we've spoken a bit about, the landscape, the sea swimming, that sort of things, the great outdoors. How much do you like that aspect of Guernsey, the outdoor environment, what it has to offer?
Oh, very much. The one interest I've not yet started to resume yet, I mean, I talked about my music, but when I was in Hong Kong, even in a very crowded city like Hong Kong, I found ways to train for triathlons and compete in triathlons in different parts of the world. Guernsey's got that on the doorstep, and very soon I'll be getting back on the bike. I do run quite a bit, but I'm looking forward to cycling around. Saturday mornings, Sunday mornings, you see lots and lots of cyclists out. And I mean, there is no 100% safe place on the planet to ride a bike if you're on a road with cars. But Guernsey is pretty close to 100%. It's a pretty safe place to ride.
And I wonder, Susanna, do you notice a bit of a difference? You said you lived in London for such a long period of time. Perhaps if you go back and visit there now and you're sort of walking down the street, you're walking outside tube stations, do you kind of notice a bit of a difference of the air that you're breathing in around you versus when you get home to Guernsey and the sea air is in your lungs?
Yeah, so when I do come back to London, I'm very conscious that I mustn't walk around with my phone in my hand in case someone will take it, or just security-wise, you just don't have to think like that in Guernsey. And I could cycle on my bicycle to the other side of the island, leave it there unlocked, pop in to go and visit a church exhibition or something, and then come out and my bike's still there. It's very, very different. That sort of
maybe takes a little while to adjust to, does it, Nicole? That kind of
Absolutely.
that aspect of you just feel very safe in Guernsey.
Absolutely.
Is that fair to convey to people that
Definitely.
it's an incredibly safe place
Incredibly.
to live?
I think I was telling somebody else earlier a story of when we first arrived, my husband went and parked in some of the car parks in St. Peter Port, sort of out along piers, and he parked his car and he saw that the car beside him, the window was down, the keys were in the car, and the gentleman had just walked away. So he ran after him and said, "So sorry, sir, I just noticed that you've left your keys in your car." And he said, "Yes." And he said, "And the window's open." And he said, "Yes." And he said, "Is that okay?" He said, "Well, if I take my keys out of the ignition, then I won't know where my keys are."
So you never lose your keys, just leave it in the car.
Exactly. And I mean, yeah, I think a few people have alluded to the fact that not everybody has a key for their front door. It's just, you don't need it.
I guess one of the things, I'll just sort of open it out in general. How did you find the aspect of moving here and maybe finding the right home to move into? Because I suppose it's not like maybe moving to a big city or a big county where there is, loads and loads of different estate agents and maybe property options. How did you find that aspect in general? I don't know if one of you wants to come in on that.
We were fortunate. So we did have a look beforehand. We happened to find somewhere that we liked and we bought before we arrived. So I think ours was a very simple process. My husband is also a pilot. We walked to the airport. So that was like, tick, thank you very much, we're done.
I don't know whether you caught a bit of what we were discussing with our property panel earlier in the day, saying, look, it can be straightforward, it can be done quickly, it can be 2 to 4 weeks.
We were in
was that your experience?
100%. I think we saw a property and bought it in the March and we moved in the April. Done.
Okay. How about you, Susanna?
So we rented for a year in Vale. We were searching around. There wasn't a huge amount.
And for people who don't know their Guernsey geography, whereabouts is Vale in the island?
So in the north, there's
a
golf course in that area that is Vale. And I looked on Airbnb and I found a property on Airbnb. And I contacted them and I said, would you consider renting this out to us? And then amazingly, miraculously, it turned out I actually knew the owners. And so I was able to kind of, because our children have been at the same nursery school in Clapham many years ago. So managed to, they were very kind, let us rent their house off them for a year. And then we found an open market property in St Sampson in the sort of northern side of the island.
And originally near the golf course. Langcress, I believe, is the elite level golf course in Guernsey. Do check it out. John, how was it for you, that sort of, I suppose, that move from Hong Kong to Guernsey, and you're thinking, well, how am I going to find the right property, the right fit for my family? Did that take a long time? Was it a bit like Nicole, Susanna was saying, fairly straightforward?
We were pretty lucky, actually. I went to Guernsey the first time just about 2 years ago and saw 8 or 9 properties over the course of a weekend, one of which was absolutely suitable for our needs. Huge garden at the back that the kids could just fall out the back kitchen door and play in the garden. And it proceeded towards a purchase and a completion in a very straightforward manner. That was the, if you like, the good luck side of it.
Yeah.
The bad luck side of it was that obviously a surveyor can only do a certain amount of poking around pre-purchase. After purchase, serious surveyors did a lot of poking around and said, "Oh, Mr. Brewer, oh, Mr. Brewer, oh, Mr. Brewer."
A lot of arms were folded, were they? They were sort of wandering around the property.
We knew it needed a particular piece of remedial work to deal with a leak in a terrace, and we determined that we would replace the downstairs kitchen. But those plans suddenly got rather larger. My wife says, well, I'd like to have this rather grand kitchen and a family room, put some bedrooms on the top to increase the value.
Yeah.
And then when it came to start the construction and finding builders, I mean, yes, we did actually spend a lot of time finding the right builders. In the meantime, we decided this wasn't going to be done inside 4 months. This was going to take a while. So then we had to rent.
Okay.
And we were lucky again with the rent. We managed to find somewhere literally 100 yards away from the property we'd bought. So we're lucky with that. But yes, once the building started, then the other problems started. And this was nobody's fault. It's just what it is. Builders say, well, your ground soil is a bit soft at the top, so we need to, instead of doing a strip foundation, we've got a raft foundation. And I asked one of my construction barrister friends in Hong Kong, what's a raft foundation? He said, John, it's an expensive foundation. New roof along the way, but having looked back, even if we'd known about all these problems, we'd still have bought it.
Yeah. And I suppose it shows maybe people were being thorough in the way that they were doing things as well. It was an anecdote as to how that all panned out.
Yeah.
Just a quick question before we go out to our audience here, see if they've got any questions for you. What about getting around the island, Nicole, Susanna? How do you find that? People are maybe used to long commutes. We've heard the Central Line, the District Line buzzed around a bit today. What's it like getting around Guernsey?
Easy.
Short drives, walks,
short
buses.
Drive, great bus system.
Yeah.
A lot of people are on bikes. I think I'm right in the south of the island, so the longest that I'm going to drive to get right to the north is half an hour. Yes, it's windy. Yes, it's small lanes. People prefer to be in smaller cars, but everybody is courteous. They're going slowly. You do have to get your head around road diversions because that happens quite a lot. But I think that's all part of sort of slowing down and just kind of, zoning into the Guernsey way. But I think generally it's pretty easy.
Absolutely. No, I drive a lot, but I am really keen to get myself a bicycle because I feel that it's just as easy to get around by bike. When I was in London, I cycled everywhere.
Yeah.
And I sort of feel like I should do much more cycling in Guernsey.
Yep, if you can cycle in London, you can definitely do it in Guernsey. Thank you very much indeed. Let's open it out to the floor, see if anybody's got any questions for our panel here. Any burning questions about, if you were to move to Guernsey, what would it be like? So any show of hands for any questions for our panelists? Goodness me, I think we have covered it all off, have we? Okay. Well, thank you very much indeed to John, to Susanna, to Nicole. Great insight on what it is like to make the move to Guernsey. Really appreciate your time. Thank you very much indeed.